Today we're going to talk about Nebbiolo. And I'm talking about these wines because I love them. Do you know what I mean? Nebbiolo is Italy, as far as I'm concerned. Some would say Sangiovese. Yes, Sangiovese also is running alongside there, but Nebbiolo for me, man, there's nothing better. Thin-skinned, like Pinot, but also a little bit kind of raw and expressive like the Italians. Like, it is old person mentality in a glass, walking down, stubborn, wants to argue with their neighbours kind of wine grape. And it shows because really that little stubborn old Italian, what you want to get out of them is how they cook their pasta or how they make their wines or those stories of the past and how they got through their life. Like, that's what you want to uncover. Passion about wine, Italy, and food. So come along as I describe what Nebbiolo is in a glass. Today we're going to talk about 3 different regions where Nebbiolo is produced, and we're going to kind of break them down very simply so the consumer understands. And we're going to talk about some stories behind the winemakers and stuff I've experienced when I've been over there. My name is Sam Maher and I am the wine director here at Somebody People. I think it is my favourite Italian grape. Those of you out there might be asking, like, you haven't seen Nebbiolo on the label before, and what is it? Well, Nebbiolo is a beautiful little thin-skinned grape that is grown predominantly around the Piedmont region of Italy. That's where it's best known. It's also grown in other various parts, especially also known in Australia around the King Valley and Adelaide Hills. It's an interesting little grape. I would say it's like the Joachim Phoenix of the acting world, you know, very versatile, like expressively brilliant. And it really is a little stubborn grape variety that really needs certain soils to be able to achieve certain things. So in calcareous soils, like great calcareous marl, sometimes in Barolo, it produces bright, friendly, open wines, but then you put it into like sandy soils and it will kind of close up for about 10 years. It won't really express itself until later on in life. So that means that it does take a little bit of maturing in bottle before you want to crack open one of those kind of more stubborn styles of Barolo. The whole reason why I got into wines really was to kind of travel around to wine regions. I figured this out from an early age, that every winery is in a stunning environment where it's either breathtaking views or there's certain environmental beauties that really contribute to the wine. There's also, we should be aiming for perfect soils to that grape variety as well and into that region to create some stunning wines. And 2006 was my first taste of Barolo, and I drove around the Langhe region. Since then, I've met with Matteo from Mauro Molino quite a lot. He produces a style of wines that is both old school, like the old school techniques taught by his father, Mauro, but also he's injected a lot more of technology into the winery. So he produces, yes, old mentality wines, but with a new kind of purpose, if that makes sense. I met Matteo in Italy, in Vinitaly, and he's like 6'7". He's also the kindest human in the whole world. So I just love tasting with him. I love tasting with his team. And to be able to have these wines in Colorado is an exceptional gift that we've got. And yeah, I think that if you see them on the wine list in any other restaurant, you should probably pick up yourself a bottle because they're well priced, brilliantly crafted. Langhe is the bigger region in Piedmont. So as you can see in these glass vin glasses, which I just love the aromatic series here, you see that it's slightly terracotta-y, or there's slightly bricky kind of characteristic to the color of the wine. That is kind of something that's really special about the Nebbiolo grape. So the skins obviously cast off this color in the wine. Another defining factor is that when you smell the wines, especially coming out of these glasses, it's really aromatic. Like, you're talking bright red cherry, red berry aromatics, tobacco, tar, sometimes mushroom, sometimes baking spice, savory characteristics. I call it a bit of a stubborn old Italian man kind of a wine because I do think that it's got a lifetime of stories in a glass, but it also takes a little bit of time to get those stories out of it. So it's a little bit stubborn, you know. They're kind of like, oh, And so I've often described it as as an old Italian man walking down a terracotta cobblestone staircase, you know, not willing to share his stories, but once they open up, you've got a lifetime of lessons in it. Yeah, give me a bowl of spaghetti bolognese, maybe pasta pomodoro, anything like that. This wine would kill it. Just amazing, amazing wine. One of the best value wines coming out of the Barolo Piedmont regions is Mauro Molino. They're just exquisitely made, great flavours, and just a beautiful little product. Wine number 2 is Marco Ferrari's little number. I love to travel around and go to wine regions that are kind of off the beaten path. I've spent a lot of my life traveling to these regions, but I recently just went to Valtellina, a place that I really want to go again. Such a dramatic region where you've got vineyards on one side, cast down to a valley, and then on the other side, you've got snow-capped mountains, the Dolomites. It's just like, it's incredibly beautiful. And as the river winds down on an easterly flow, the vineyards really capture as much sun as possible. It is about 2 hours drive northeast of Milan. Now, Marco Ferrari, apart from having one of the most brilliant names a winemaker can ever have, he trained in Cornas with Frank Balthazar. He took inspiration from Clap and Thierry Allemand. And from there, from Cornas in the Rhone Valley, he learned how to properly manage terrace vineyards. So Valtellina is all about these terrace vineyards. After working with Arpape as well in the Valtellina region, he eventually he acquired 2.5 hectares worth of vines, and he started farming his vines himself. Everything's farmed organically to the phases of the moon. He's all about biodynamics and sustainability. He would be 36, if I'm going to throw a dart at an age. It's probably about 36. When I went there, he picked me up in this beaten old car. He kind of kidnapped me and said, "Sam, let's go for a drive in the vines." We zipped around and he bundled me out of his car and we were looking at the vineyard. And this vineyard is just stones, schist, granite, just like stones everywhere. You've got terraced vineyards which might only hold like maybe 10 to 20 different vines on each little terrace. It's all hand harvested. The work that must be done in these vineyards is bone-crunchingly hard. And so what you're getting in the glass is something that's feral. I don't really think that that's a very good name for it, but with feralness, you also get a beauty. So like Beauty and the Beast, these wines are incredibly descriptive of the environment that they're grown in. You're getting just this rugged, almost hobbit-like recluseness of the wines. Like, they're not showy. You have to think about them. The local cuisine is like buckwheat pasta with mushrooms, or you might have fontina cheese or any of this kind of stuff that's just going on cabbage and very alpine food. But this wine with these dishes is exquisite. Like, I definitely think that when you're looking at a wine and you smell it and you think it's interesting, but you put it in your mouth and it just throws you back to that region, like, this is what I get in this glass every time I drink it. I just get transported back to Valtellina, where I'm sitting there on a mountaintop, looking over snow-capped mountains, and just dreaming about what's going to happen in my life in the future. You know, that's kind of what I get from this wine. It's really beautiful. So as I mentioned, in the glass, you're getting this little terracotta-y kind of look. Not as much as the Langhe Nebbiolo, but it is there. On the nose, definitely earthy. It's like earth first. It's only a 2022, so it's not so much secondary characteristics, but it's like very intriguing. Like, let's say intriguing in the glass. And then on the palate, you're getting those quintessential Nebbiolo characteristics: high acid, medium plus tannin, I reckon. Not high tannin on this wine, but pain is beauty in a weird sense. Yeah, but just an amazing wine. Yeah, love it. The reason why these wines exist is because they combine with the food. And so when you're looking at buckwheat pasta, the whole reason why buckwheat was grown in this region was because wheat couldn't grow that high, because the altitude was too high. This wine, combined with that classic buckwheat pasta with tom cheese and cabbage and potato folded in, or grilled puccini mushrooms just served as they are, because they're just, if you freshly pluck them out of the ground, put them on the grill, smoky, earthy, umami, just deliciousness. Mixed with this wine, it would just be dead set some of the best you put in your mouth. So Marco's combined both his teachings from the Rhone Valley and also his time with Arpe in the Valtellina region, and kind of combine the two. And so what you're getting is this kind of French finesse intertwined with this Italian expression. Just a beautiful wine. If you see it on the retail bottle shop shelves, please pick up a bottle, because it's really, really, really interesting wine. So Marco Ferrari, thank God. Cheers. So sad, I've only got one sip left. So we've tasted the Mauro Molino Nebbiolo from the Langhe region in Piedmont. This is from the Barbaresco region. People fight over what's better, Barolo or Barbaresco. And you know, in my mind, it really comes down to the winemaker and how they express what's coming out of the earth. And that's kind of how I feel about most wines. Dave Fletcher, Aussie, obsessed with Nebbiolo. What Dave does is incredible. I think that his obsession with the Nebbiolo grape and what it does in different regions is his stamp on the wine world. You know, he makes wine in Australia from Nebbiolo, makes wine in Barbaresco from Nebbiolo, makes wine in the Langhe region from Nebbiolo. I would be hard pressed to not do a video about Nebbiolo without presenting his wines in this conversation. The fact that he's an Aussie is a plus. I think the thing with Australians is that most of the time traditionally they're fruit forward. So you go, hey, I'm going to make a wine, but it's got to be made in an Australian way. And I like the way that Dave's gone about this, and he said, no, I make wines in Barbaresco region, and I'm not going to make fruit forward wines. I'm going to make the wines that are expressive of that region, combined with the Italian mentality of the wine. So, like, instantly, you're not getting a flash of fruit up in your mouth. It's not fruit forward, juicy, or like that style. It's actually really well made, structure forward, classic Barbaresco. This is 2021. Not only a balanced Barbaresco, it's just like completely round and juicy. So on the nose, you are getting that. If you can notice, there's that little terracotta-y nature to the wine. I don't know if you can see that on camera. Who knows if you can see that, but maybe the viewers back home can see it. But like, you're getting this gorgeous little bricky character in the colour. On the nose, again, red fruit, tar, tobacco leaf, I should say, baking spice, leather-bound books, old library where you might find a little mogwai kind of flavour to the one. That was a Gremlins reference. I hope everyone understood that. And then on the palate, again, beautifully integrated, grippy, getting good acidity, getting this deep, kind of long-lasting flavour along the palate with these juicy little pockets of fruit and tobacco and secondary characteristics of baking spice and cinnamon, and all these kind of little things that can kind of follow through with the palate. When you're thinking about matching this with something that's some food, I would say that any meat dishes, yes, but for me, I can't go past just having a good old-fashioned like gnocchi with mushroom, you know, a little mushroom gnocchi, beautifully tossed together, some fresh parsley over the top, I think would just be outstanding. If you could find puccini mushrooms as you went foraging, outstanding. But a cracking wine from a great producer. All these wines are amazing. So if you find them on the shelves, Divino maybe, or your local bottle shop, please get them. I love Nebbiolo, and it's a great exploration to what Italy does in the northern parts. Like and subscribe, and check out 3 Blind